On today's show, Seth Godin, the iconic entrepreneur, New York Times bestselling author, and the man who in 1998 sold his company Yoyodyne to Yahoo for $30 million.
Well, now that's a lot of money if you round it up,
Joins us to share how he started his first business out of his New York City studio apartment, why he believes that instead of wondering where your next vacation should be, you should set up a life that you don't want to escape from, why nobody bought one of the first books that he wrote, why he doesn't own a television, his process for writing books, his criteria for what he says no and yes to, his mantra of pick your customers, pick your life, why he rails about industrial complexes, our shared love for patina, and much, much more.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get.
Oh, yes, Thrive Nation, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Thrive Time Show on your radio and podcast download. Mr. Seth Godin, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, but getting better. Thank you for having me.
Well, Seth, you've written now over 15 books. I believe 17 is the official count. Do you have a favorite book?
It's a little like asking about your favorite kid, but I will tell you, the new one is my 19th. The one that I tend to talk about when people ask me that question is the second or third one, which is called Survival is Not Enough. And the reason is because no one bought it. It was a total failure. There are 2 reasons for that. One reason is because it came out right after 9/11, which was tragic for so many people. And then the second reason is because it's about evolutionary theory. I worked on it 8 hours a day for a year. I love that book, but it didn't work. So you learn a lesson.
You know, Seth, you have written a lot about finding your vocation. I don't know if you've ever used those specific words, but the word vocation originally in the Latin means your calling, and vacation means to retreat from. But you have a notable quotable where I've read that you once wrote, instead of wondering where your next vacation is, maybe you should set up a life you don't need to escape from. Can you share what you mean by this?
Well, I think we begin with this. Everyone should have something that they love to do, something that feels to them like they're truly connected to it. But that doesn't have to be the thing you get paid for. It's just a very happy moment if they turn out to be the same thing. But rather than forcing that thing you do to also be the thing you love, if we give ourselves permission to do both, to say, there's this, I love opera, and I'm going to work in my spare time, and I'm not going to try to make money from that. And then when I do my job, I'm going to do my job with care and grace, but I'm not going to expect it to feel like opera. We let ourselves off a dangerous hook when we do that, because then we can go to work and act as if our work matters, act as if we are making a contribution, act as if our energy will come back to us many times over. And what I found when people do that is they can turn almost any job into a job where they can thrive. And when you take that attitude, suddenly you're not in such a hurry to run away from it.
I feel like you've been running towards your vocation for many years, and a lot of people know you now as a best-selling author, as one of the probably most influential entrepreneurial authors of the past decade, some could argue. But you started out of a New York City studio apartment with a book packaging company. Can you share with us what it was like to start that book packaging company? And really, when did you start to develop some type of traction as an entrepreneur?
Well, you're being really generous, because for something to be a company, it needs to have revenue. And so for a year, I didn't have revenue. I was getting close to selling my stuff to the pawn shop, but that's all I was selling, because what book packagers do is they invent ideas for books, bring them to the book publishing world. And if someone likes them, they give you money and then you go make the book. And I started the company with a project I did with Chip Conley, who also went off to become successful. We sold that book for $5,000 on the first day. But then I started the company and I didn't sell anything for a year.
Oof.
Rejection for a whole year. I was working 12 hours a day, shipping out proposals, 850 or so proposals, not one thing sold. And that was really, really hard. And it wasn't just that I wasn't getting revenue. It was that the people around me didn't get what I was trying to do. So not only didn't the world understand my vision, the people who cared about me didn't understand it either. And that took a lot of reserve to get through.
You know, Dr. Zellner and I both started from the bottom. He is an optometrist turned entrepreneurial tycoon. I started a company called DJ Connection out of my dorm room that grew into the largest wedding entertainment company in the country. And we've gone on to grow 13 multi-million-dollar companies together. And we love stories about guys like you that started from the bottom and sort of grew to the next level. And I think one of the things you have to do to become successful is you have to build a foundation of your daily mantra, your daily rituals, your daily flow state, your normal. Can you walk us through the first 3 hours of your typical day? I mean, what does that look like, my friend? Because you're the master of saying no. What are the first 3 hours of your? What does that look like? How do you organize your day? Walk us through your routine.
Well, I think it's important to not get confused by the specifics, right? So, as you know, Dr. Zellner went to school in Buffalo. I went to school in Buffalo. Does that mean that you have to go to school in Buffalo in order to be successful? I don't think so, right? That's an irrelevant coincidence. What's relevant is what's the story you tell yourself about the work you're going to try to do. And for me, I was telling myself a really negative story, particularly halfway through the first year. The phone would ring and I say, oh, here comes someone ready to reject me. And the mail would come and I say, oh, here comes some more rejection letters, as if I was hoping that it would happen, right? And I spent a lot of time listening to Zig Ziglar, a lot of time making sure I was feeding myself a different story. And the big shift for me happened when I made the decision that I was now doing work that I get to do, not that I have to do. And that's the biggest thing about my daily ritual. I don't have an alarm clock. I just leap out of bed because I can't believe I get to do this again. And there's not one part of my day where I roll my eyes and go, oh, I can't believe I have to do that. Because if I'm going to do it, it's a choice. And if I don't want to do it, then I can arrange my life so I don't have to.
There you go.
I don't go to meetings, and none. I don't have a television because those were things that were winding me down. And instead, I've tried to organize a day where I can't believe I get to do this.
Tell me about the process you go through in creating a new book. Where do you start, and what does it look like, and then how do you finish it?
So the way it used to work is I made a commitment that I was going to do a book a year because I liked the rhythm and the process. So every once in a while I would say, if I'm going to have a book coming out next year, I better have something ready to go soon. And I would look at what the world was saying to me, where I saw a hole happening, where the opportunity was. But I haven't done that in about 8 or 9 books. Now, it's so painful to bring a book to market that I only write a book if the book demands that I do. So my blog lets me off the hook. If I can just write a blog post, then I don't have to write the book. Done. But if the idea keeps knocking on my door and won't let me go, I say, all right, well, this idea demands this format. And because I'm not saying to the world, read this book, buy this book, because it's time for me to sell you a book, my posture is different. I don't have to go out and say, oh, time to sell a book again. It's a different sort of process. Then what I do generally is write the whole thing in 3 weeks and then spend 6 months or so rewriting it, thinking about it, throwing parts of it out. There are 5 books I've written the whole book and no one's ever read it because it wasn't good enough when I was done. So it sort of put that into place, see how it all fits together. And if I think it's something that I can be proud of 10 years from now, then I'll share it with people.
You know, as Seth, one of the things I think is remarkable about you is that you say no to a lot of things. And I've heard you in previous interviews talk about this. And you say no to speaking events routinely, which Jonathan, who works closely with me in my office, who I believe arranged our interview, Jonathan knows this. Whenever someone reaches out to me for a speaking event, I almost immediately say no unless XYZ is the case. Can you explain your criteria for what you say no to? Because that's why you have the time freedom to focus on the things that you're excited about. I mean, it's because you say no. Can you talk about what's your criteria for the things you say no to, and what do you say yes to?
Well, I would begin with this. The mantra that I think is true for everyone is pick your customers, pick your future. The people that you are serving, the people who are paying you, are the ones who are going to determine how you're going to spend your day. And so I don't have a staff. I don't have a team. It's just me. And if I don't spend today doing X, then I could do Y, but I can't do X and Y at the same time. So I used to limit myself to about 30 speaking gigs a year. Now it's 15. And I think hard about how far is this going to be? How many people am I going to be able to impact? Is the audience is the biggest one enrolled in where I want to go? So I mistakenly took a gig 6 or 7 years ago to 3,000 men and women, mostly men, who own car repair, a big chain of car repair franchises. So there were 3,000 people there. It met many of my criteria, except they had no interest in what I had to say.
What was your speech? What was your speech of that day? Do you remember?
Totally. My speech was the speech I give is, if I were in their shoes, what would I need to hear? What would I want to hear? How could I open a door for them?
Mm-hmm.
So I imagined what I would do if I owned a Goodyear, Goodrich tire and rubber kind of facility. How could I be significantly above average? What would it mean to have a different relationship with my customers? What would it mean to do work that they would miss if it were gone, to not be in a commodity business? And I was right, except for one thing, which is that's not why they were in the business. And they were in the business for something that I would never be in the business for. They liked owning a car repair shop, and they didn't want it to be one that was exceptional. They just wanted it to be the one they had.
Right.
Pay the bills. They just want to pay the bills and fix a car.
Fine, that's great, but I shouldn't be the person to talk to you today.
Ooh, well, now, Seth, I want to ask you this because you have said there was an interview you did with Tim Ferriss, and Tim, for any of our listeners out there who don't know, Tim Ferriss is one of the top podcasters on the planet. And you talked about how you typically rail against industrial complexes. Can you please explain why you rail against industrial complexes? And if you have time, I want you to talk about Patina, because you and I share a love for the Patina. So talk to me about railing against industrial complexes. And if you have a moment, I'd love for you to share your focus on Patina.
So General Eisenhower famously warned the public that there was a military industrial complex being built that was pushing us to be in the Vietnam War. And what it means is you have a company that makes weapons. You use some of that money to lobby the government to get into wars so you can sell more weapons. The military industrial complex, it works in tandem. And what's happened as various industries have grown is they've also turned into complexes. So you have the educational industrial complex, which is a for-profit system that's constantly chewing kids up, putting them through test prep, putting them into debt, et cetera, et cetera. You have the social media industrial complex, where people are basically going to work for their phones, not vice versa. That if you're on a social network and you're not paying for it, that's because you're not the customer, you're the product. And we have these engines that push us to be cogs in a machine, push us to be part of the cash system, not part of the make a difference system. And so whenever I see one of these working, my disruption is to say to the people who are willing to listen to me, wait a minute, you have more power than you think you do. You have more freedom than you think you do. It's worth standing up and saying, I care enough about this that I don't want to be a pawn in the system. I just want to make something better instead. And so I'm against cogs. I'm against people who check their imagination at the door when they get to work and who, work for the weekend, work for the self-storage unit, work for the TV and the six-pack, because life, I think, is too valuable to waste spending 9 hours at work so that you can spend an hour and a half watching Netflix at night.
Can you talk to me about Patina? Because I think you and I share. I think we have a Vesica Pisces. I think we have an intersection of our two values. I love Patina. Can you talk to the listeners out there? What is Patina? Why are you into it?
So there's a Japanese term, wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is the decay of nature and its intersection with the rest of us. Wabi-sabi, patina, it's the disorganized bookshelf. It's the fingerprints we leave behind. And so my office has a patina of 25 years of making stuff. The patina has a patina. I can tell when I walk into my office if someone's moved a few of the books because they're not in any order whatsoever except they're in my order.
Right.
And patina is the sort of cruft that's left behind of a life well lived. So I don't have a lot of patience for people who want it to be industrial and pristine. I would like to see that someone was here before me, and I'd like to leave behind this set of fingerprints.
Seth, if I could ask you this question, this is a self-help question for me personally, and then I'll let you hang up on us because I know you have other things to do, and you're choosing to be here
great.
with us.
You're good at this.
I really I appreciate this because this is like I've read your books, and I've thought to myself, I would love to meet Seth Godin. I would love to meet him. And because I built multi-million-dollar companies, that doesn't take away my boyish excitement to have you on the show, and it's going to go down as one of those like. I want to put it on my tombstone. I once interviewed Seth Godin. It's so exciting. So I want to ask you this question. You've been interviewed by some of the top podcasters and publications on the planet. In your mind, who was your favorite interviewer? The person who interviewed you where you thought, that was a good interviewer? Because I want to get better. So what was the best interviewer you've ever had, and why?
Well, I would say minute by minute, you two are up there. Because it's almost impossible to do an interview in 10 or 15 minutes that actually gets to something of substance. And I applaud you for being crazy enough to try. And this has been thrilling. The interviews that are on my all-time list are much, much, much longer than this because you need to get into sync with people. My friend Brian Koppelman has done 5 with me. My friend Krista Tippett did an interview that made me cry that I recommend to people because that's my best version of myself when I was on Being. And what I'm doing with my podcast, Akimbo, is interviewing myself. And I've done that for 25 episodes so far, and I really think that's resonating with people. So those are 3 that I would mention. And as we're wrapping this up, I just want to point out that you've had great success. And I would say the secret of your success is work that matters for people who care. And that's the untitled subtitle of my new book. Because if any of us get the chance to do work that matters for people who care, that's all we can ever hope for.
If I could sneak in,
that's powerful.
If I could sneak in one more question, can you tell us about your new book, your new thing? Because I'm excited as a consumer, and I know that if I buy your book after you pay this guy who pays that guy who pays that guy, I don't know what you make. Let's say I buy a book for $20, which I always buy your books. So let's just say you get, what do you get? If I buy a book for $20, do you get $2? I mean, how much?
Less than
$1?
Yeah, $1.50.
I probably have to buy 4 of your books then. I'm not kidding. I have bought at least 50 of the Purple Cow book, and I've given it away.
Well,
so
you did what I wanted you to, but let's be really clear. Yeah. If anyone thinks they're going to make a living writing books, they're crazy. I do not write books. I do not write books to make a living. I write books to make a difference. I go through all the hassle of cutting down all those trees and going through all these steps, not because it's a good way to make a living, but because some people benefit from having that object in their hand. Like I've written 7,500 blog posts for free. If you want to read those, read those. But if a book helps you, then my new book's called This Is Marketing. And the idea of This Is Marketing is when you appeal to the smallest viable audience, not the biggest one, with work that matters. When you see people for fear, when you see them for status, when you understand that some people measure affiliation and some people measure dominance, that when you get to the humanity of the story we tell ourselves, then you can finally get down to making the work that you care about.
Seth, I appreciate you for writing content that matters, books that matter for people who care, like myself. And I hope I didn't screw up this interview so much that you never want to come on again. But I want you to know your book, Purple Cow, helped me launch a company called Epic Photography. It helped me absolutely change the way I ran DJ Connection, and our company Elephant in the Room that we're franchising, and a brand called OxyFresh that has over 400 locations have all been impacted by the book Purple Cow. And so I'm honored and humbled to have you on the show. And thank you for not saying no to me, because I know that you are the master of saying no. And it means the world to me. And I'm probably going to go into my forest here behind my man cave studio and probably cry to celebrate this moment. So
and prophetically chop down a tree, because you said you have all those trees chopped down to produce your book.
I mean it, though. It's been a huge highlight in my life. So thank you so much for being here today.
I feel great about it. I'm glad we got to connect. Thank you both. Good luck with the show.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. We'll see you
Have a
soon.
blessed day.
Classy act.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth.
Bye-bye.
Thrive Nation, if you are looking for a gift for somebody in your life who loves business, growing businesses, and the idea of achieving success in the world of entrepreneurship, you got to go buy Seth Godin's newest book called This Is Marketing. You can't be seen until you learn to see. I repeat, this is marketing. You can't be seen until you learn to see. Pick it up today in bookstores or on Amazon.com. Also, if you're out there and you have yet to attend our in-person Thrive Time Show workshops, I would encourage you to purchase your tickets for our December conference. This thing is going to be hot. It's December 7th and 8th. And we're going to be featuring the best-selling author and the public relations expert of choice, the PR consultant of choice for Nike, for Pizza Hut, for Prince, for Michael Jackson, for George Michael, for President Bush, for President Clinton. Michael Levine will be attending the workshop, and he'll actually be speaking at the workshop. And Ken Schmidt, the man responsible for the turnaround at Harley-Davidson, will also be speaking at the workshop. If you've yet to attend a Thrive Time workshop, I'm telling you, you owe it to yourself, to your family, and to your financial future. Get your tickets today at thrivetimeshow.com. And now, without any further ado, we like to end each and every show with a boom. And so here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom.